Hey guys, welcome back. Now I've got a little bit something special planned for you this morning. Just got off a Skype call with the guys from We May Fall who got in touch with us. You'll know I've featured them previously a couple of times on the channel. Absolutely love everything these guys do, and it's been an absolute privilege to have had a chat with them this morning. Anyway, guys, here's the interview, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Okay, guys, so as promised, I've now got a little bit of an interview with the boys from We May Fall.
How you going, man?
How's it going, dude? How's your day been? Well, it's evening where you are, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. It's a bit cold over here at the moment, so it's not always sunny in
You
Oz.
guys just you did a show, didn't you, with Arch Enemy? Like,
Yeah,
how was that?
yeah.
How was that, man? And how did that come about for you guys?
Um, Man, that would be like it was an amazing experience. Um, and it really just came down to us sort of, you know, approaching their management and just approaching them in general, sort of putting our best foot forward.
That was like awesome. As soon as I saw that, I was like, "What the fuck, man!" Like, just the thought of even being in the same room as like Arch Enemy, I'd just be like, Jesus. Like, it's like I said in a video I did last night. Like those, I don't know what it's like over where you guys are, but like where we are, the kind of more of a household name. Like it's like if you meet someone who's a metal fan and you get talking to them, they're sort of like in the same sort of division as like Machine Head, Sepultura. They've originally when they brought out We Will Rise, which I think is probably one of the first songs everybody heard, and then suddenly
Yeah.
now they're just like a massive name. But yeah, with you guys, man, I hadn't heard of you guys until it was I think it was one of the guys from Lycanthrope who I fucking pronounced
Yeah,
right
yeah.
this time because I know I was always terrible for getting my pronunciations wrong. But yeah, I literally rewatched the video when we originally featured you, and just see my reaction from that. I was just like, even now, like the main two, those are the main two songs. The first video that we featured, and then when we did, what's the fucking name of the song, man? It had you did a track with, was it Alex Reed? Is she called?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
Yeah,
how,
down.
yeah, like how did those two collaborations come about? Because I know from I've spoke to Nate like a couple of times, but I'd not actually heard of her before. And how did those two collaborations come about? Was that did you already know those guys, or had you sort of like linked up somehow?
Well, yeah, I mean, Nate, from the Brave, those boys are like they're mates of ours. We'd played quite a few shows with them, and yeah, really gotten around town, like around, yeah, just everywhere with them, sort of thing, for a little while. So we already had that established relationship there. So it was basically just, mates asking mates to help out with something, or like, just something cool to have friends on a song and whatnot. So
It's usually the way it comes about. I mean, it's good because obviously it brings a little bit more attention to you guys from their fans, and vice versa. And then I mean, it's not something I've looked into yet, but just purely from listening to that song so much, that makes me like, you know what, I want to go and find what other things she's done, and all the other stuff that Nate's done as well. And it's a good way of always finding new music. But one thing I'm really interested in is obviously being in the UK, we've got this. I think from certainly from all the music that I get exposed to, and all the music that a lot of my friends are into. For us, when we think of Australia, the main names that usually come up is like Parkway Drive, North Lane. I think those seem to be like the two sort of big names. I mean, from what's that like from? Because obviously you guys being in Australia, I don't know whether that is the case. Is that exactly the same, or the other bands that we should be checking out that because it's completely different here for us, I think.
Yeah. I think, I suppose you nailed it. I suppose in this kind of genre, Parkway Drive, one of the first. So Parkway Drive are still the biggest band, I suppose, if you want to, whether you want to call the overall general hardcore or that kind of heavy music genre. Northland are quite big too. But there's so many smaller bands that, like, you wouldn't have heard of, and even people like the Brave and that, and till you've done those interviews and chatted to people, then you kind of start hearing those kind of smaller names. But you know, all the bigger ones here you would know because they usually make waves in the UK before they come back to Australia, and everyone's like, oh, they're big now, or oh, so you sometimes find out before we do because they make their waves over there and then come back over here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, like, and that's a difficult thing as well, like being in Australia, because it's so, like, it's what I'm looking for, separated from the rest of the world. Like, we're so far away, so far removed from everyone. Like, it's kind of difficult to really build a name internationally until you can actually sort of get over to those countries and really like make your mark, which is something that Parkway Drive did brilliantly. They went over they went over to Europe on their own dime. They literally just turned up at venues and asked to play that night. They were just relentless. So like, as far as the scene over here is concerned, it's really just a case of like just working your ass off and trying to like get that business going so you can actually make those trips over there too.
It's to just, I mean, from I've seen like all of the documentaries that Parkway Drive have done, and I find it inspiring. Like what I do musically is, it's nowhere near to their style or your style. But I still absolutely love it, and I know just doing something off your own back and going to another country. I mean, you probably know yourselves, the majority of the money that you make it's always going to be on the merch. I think you're still always going to get people that will buy CDs. I mean, back when Parkway Drive first started, I only really got into them on last sort of few years ago, and then that's what suddenly spurred me on when I started doing so. I was like, right, let's start featuring a bunch of Australian bands, and then literally anytime someone sent me something like, oh dude, this band's from Australia, I was like, I just know this is going to be awesome, just purely because that's the experience that I've had from anything that's been sent from Australia. But I'd be interested to know in your sort of influences, guys, like because I was listening through your first album. It's primarily the most recent one that I listen to the majority of the time. But if I'm listening to the first one and then to the next one, they've kind of got a similar feel, but I kind of feel you've sort of delved more into a sort of much more heavy, sort of harsher sound of the new album. Like, where do you guys stand in terms of like your influences? Like collectively, are you all fairly similar, or is it quite different?
I think we're similar to a degree, but then we're quite different as well. So, some of us have more of a rock background, like prog stuff, Deftones, Tool, Queens of the Stone Age, that kind of stuff. And then some of us more have like a hardcore background, like that's old school Parkway Drive and Bleeding Through and kind of all that stuff. And, Rudy was brought up listening to Guns N' Roses and had the real rock and roll kind of sound. And so we kind of all listen to a bunch of different stuff, like JJ and I and Bones listen to synthwave and a whole bunch of 80s stuff, and you hear synths in the new album. Hands down, songs like that.
There you go.
It's really funny you say that about the 80s synthwave, because the track that you did with Alex when she did the guest vocals on, that's the one thing that I picked up just from the graphics, just like at the start of it. I did sort of, I sense you would try to sort of like put that feel across, because I think when a band, sometimes they will put like any sort of logo or graphic into the video. I don't think it's always just about it looking cool. It's like it's sort of like you're taking a piece of what's maybe either one person or what they're into collectively, and rather than somebody saying, oh well, we like this and this, you put that into the video, and that's you. So you're sort of putting your art across, but in a different way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, like it's something that like we really wanted to sort of step out of the norm as far as a lot of the imagery was concerned, but we also wanted to kind of extend ourselves musically, but also retain a lot of our own sensibilities. And I guess it comes down to really kind of pushing that envelope a little bit. And you never know what's going to kind of take until you actually do it, like what's actually going to, grab people or pull people in. And it's really a case of wanting to do everything you can or want to do, but if it works, it's amazing. If it doesn't, then it's going back to the drawing board. And I mean, so far so good. People have really sort of grabbed onto that kind of sound, so we're really starting to kind of work that in a hell of a lot more into what we're doing.
Have we got an, obviously I know you, because it was last year when the current album was released, wasn't it? Was it?
Yeah.
Almost next month actually. Next month is 1 year to the date.
Yeah.
I'd imagine from when that was actually released to when you guys actually, before you went into the studio, I'd imagine you probably already had that down for quite some time, because I remember when we did the cycle of when we recorded the latest album till it actually got to it being finished and then playing it live, we were just like, man, we've been playing this for a ridiculous amount of time and we're going to start writing. Was it a similar process for you guys?
Yeah.
Or at least we'd heard the songs a billion times at least, even before we started rehearsing them with all the different mixes and changes and things like that. So definitely we had been around those songs for a long time before it came out.
Sorry, I've got a cat trying to come up on the bloody piss off. What was I just going to say then? It's totally just like frazzled my mind now, man. With your writing process, how does that go about? Because I remember years back watching the Metallica Some Kind of Monster film, and I remember when they go into a room and they don't really have that many ideas, just like, oh well, I'll just play this and then just put something to it. They're like, this is crazy that we can just like do this and come out with music, and I'm like, dude, isn't that the way that everyone generally does it? But I know a lot of people will do it a completely different way. Like, how does the writing process come for you guys? Is it similar to that, or is it completely different?
I think honestly, I think it's changed so many times.
Yeah.
Like there's no one particular way that we'll write. Like T-Bones will come in with a whole bunch of like, synth sort of, patterns, or, just a section to a song that he just thought, oh, that sounds cool. Like, how's about this sort of thing? Like, or, Stu, he absolutely loves, our bassist. He absolutely loves just, laying down rhythm and like putting like, beats to different rhythm patterns on the bass. So there's so many different things coming like from different angles, and I guess it can be absolute chaos sometimes, which inevitably then ends up in some kind of argument about what should go where, or whatever. But at the end of the day, you end up getting the best possible product. You end up getting the best that song could be. So we try and work to everybody's strengths.
Dude,
in that.
Just a part in itself, man. That was just absolutely killer. Like, I think I posted something the other night. It's a private message group. There's a guy that's got another channel called FYM Reacts. He's another UK guy. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not. Anyway, I just dropped into the message group for it and mentioned if there's any of your fans in there, and they were like, oh no, I don't think I've heard of these. I was like, right, I've listened to this, and you've already answered one of the questions. Like, one of the guys.
Thanks, man.
No, one of the guys. I'm always happy to promote, man. But I was like, let's see if we can get some more questions, because I was like, I could just ask a ton of questions until the cows come home. But one of the guys wanted to know about influences, and obviously you've like discussed that. But I remember when he said, as soon as your vocal kicks, and he was like, the guy was just like, oh my God, man, that just kicks so hard. And I just like couldn't agree more, because I remember when because you've got Nate's vocal that comes in, but then when you get yours coming with that, and I was just like, fuck, man. It's just when you hear that, that's just the sound of just wanting to punch someone in the face in the most positive way, man. But what have we got? What's coming up next for you guys? Like, what's the? Because I know you're always sort of working ahead, aren't you? You're like, oh well, we've done this, but you're always getting everything booked in advance, are you, for like the following year? So what can we expect to see coming up over the next sort of 12 months? Is there a plan in particular you've got coming that you can talk about? Obviously.
Yeah. Well, we're going into writing, so but there's not a set plan of like, yes, there's going to be a whole album or a whole EP or whatever. We've just going to go in, and we've got almost a week booked next month, and we're just going to sit and write every day, which we haven't before. It's going to be very different for us. Usually, you know, in between jobs and things, we'd kind of get together once a week and start writing a song and then stop. And as you know, it can take months and months and months. So we thought, no, this time we're just going to blank out like 5 days in a rehearsal studio and just demo stuff up, see how far we can get. And we've never actually blocked ourselves away for a short time and actually done that. So whether we get a few songs or half an album or whatever we do, we're just going to see how that goes. So the plan is just to write some new stuff and release some new stuff. We'd love to get us to some different places where we haven't played before. I'd love to come to the UK.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I'd fucking have you, man. We have there's actually there's a call it a venue where I work. It's essentially a little pub with a stage. I've been playing in there for years, and there's a guy called Jed Saint. He also sings for the band Passengers, and he does a lot of promoting for that. He works with Raucous. So if you're ever gonna come over here, man, he's probably one of the main guys to like speak to. Sound a bit like, oh, should we get We May Fall? And fucking yes, man. They can all just fucking kip here or get all the beers in, and it would just be amazing. It would be really.
That'd be amazing.
It would be cool, but again, Australia is one. I think it's one of the places. I think a lot of bands from the UK. It's the one place that everyone wants to go and play, but it's so expensive to get over, man. But
it is.
And same for us. We lose money coming over to see you.
Yeah,
it's one of them though, isn't it? I think back to speaking about when Parkway did it, and you know they were just traveling across Australia and jumping on a ton of shows. I think before we had social media, that was literally the way to do it. Whereas now, you know, it's become much more saturated, but I think it does open up a lot more doors. I mean, all it literally takes is someone to, you know, share a video that's got, you know, whether it's any, obviously you've got your reaction channels, you've got all the channels which will showcase new music, and all it takes is a couple of people to share it, and then it's got like ripple effect, hasn't it? And then suddenly you can be everywhere. It's just getting it to the right people, and then hopefully
most definitely. No, and that's like why we appreciate, like, you know, people like you so much. That are so, like, you know, that are so keen and willing and just, like, you know, fans of music, because I mean at the end of the day, like, we are fans of music. That's why we do this to begin with, you know. So to actually be able to connect with, you know, someone on the other side of the world that appreciates what we do musically, that, you know, has that shared community, you know, it's and that's amazing, and like that's where social media and stuff has really opened up so many doors. But at the same time, like, it can actually have such a damaging effect as well, which we've seen, and like everybody sees, like, time and time again.
Oh, there's so much nonsense that I say. The one thing that gets me, like, in terms of I get questions a lot about, do you ever get a song that you just absolutely hate? And there have been stuff that have been sent, and I've been like, it's not really hitting it with me. But a friend of mine actually said, to us, like, after I did the video, and he was like, you hated that, didn't you? And I was like, well, you can't really say hate. I was like, hate's such a strong word. For me, it's always about being positive, because the way that I look at it is, a band spend a lot of time and effort doing what they do. You know, it's not my place to say this is bad, but it's like, what's bad? I mean, you know, for me being a fan of you guys, I love everything that you do. I could show your stuff to somebody that isn't into that sort of thing whatsoever, and be like, if I always challenge people. If someone said this is shit, and I'm like, right, well, why is it? Well, it just is. And I'm like, yeah, but why don't you like it? And it's like, it's sort of trying to get people into the mindset of, it's not technically one standard thing of this is bad, it's just not someone's particular taste. But you know what, I've always held my hands up. If somebody sends me, like, I don't know, a pop song, or there's this whole like MC scene thing over here where you literally can't even tell what they're saying, and I was just like,
Yeah.
that's not for me
Yeah.
whatsoever. Someone asked me to feature it on the channel once, and I was like, I'll be honest, I was like, I would. It's probably the one thing I couldn't be positive about, but I always try to be as
Yeah.
positive as I possibly can.
Yeah, but I mean that's all it takes, man. It's just that little bit of like open-mindedness, you know, like you know, for instance, you know, my girlfriend, like her musical taste is so varied, and she's had such an influence on me as well, as far as, you know, just stuff that she'll show me or just listen, like, and she spreads around like wildfire, you know, like it's like, and now I've found myself becoming like a massive fan of, like, you know, Panic at the Disco, just based on the fact that Brendan Urie is just this phenomenal like performer and
Oh yeah.
artist and all that sort of thing, and he's like, you know, so like, you know, the more that we kind of move and mature within our own music, the more that we can actually take from other styles of music and implement that into our own. And that's where, especially with the sort of more synthwave stuff, has come into play with that, because that kind of opened up like another place for us to sort of maneuver and go and navigate and, you know, explore.
Oh yeah, certainly. I can certainly see that. Certainly from listening to your first album to the latest one, and when you hear that track, like that's completely different. Like from listening to everything else, and then when I came across that, I was like, oh wow! I was like, this is really really different, and I think that's always good. You don't really what I like it when bands don't stick to the same formula all the time. I mean, one thing you'll get, I always read a lot of bands will say, we don't want to just reproduce what we did on the last album on the next one. Sometimes it can be difficult though, because I can imagine you're like, oh, I loved what we did on this, let's write something like that again. And it's fine just being like, right, let's do something different. But it always depends what everyone else wants to do. I mean, do you get many conflicts within the band of like, I want to do something like this, and everyone's like, oh, I'm not doing that. Do you ever get anything like that, or are you all sort of level pegged in terms of what you want to do?
Um, Occasionally, I guess, you know, like,
Yeah, it's more so like little parts, like not as a style or genre, but more so maybe like someone might be sold on a certain part or a certain verse or a certain chorus or a certain sound, but not
yeah,
like no one's gone, oh, I want to play this music, I want to play this kind of sound like this band, and we've gone, nah, it's more been like, oh, I wanted to keep that verse, or I wanted to keep more that those kind of little things. But I think we've all want to kind of do something a bit different with these next album or EP, whatever we end up doing. So I think we want to kind of keep our kind of sound or vibe we want it to sound like we move forward, but you know, like you said, we don't want to produce the same thing again. The second album was different to the first, and the next one's going to be different again.
yeah, and that's where this last track that we released off the record kind of bookends that whole thing. You know, we're more or less, you know, kind of putting that record to sleep now. We've done. It's, you know, it's been amazing. It's like, and we'll still continue, of course, to play those songs live. And after we've written new material and whatnot, we'll continue to play, like, you know, a lot of those songs live. But it's really a case of like, you know, what that was belongs back there. So what we do next is going to be either an extension of that or a complete sideways step to that. You know, from everything you learn from, you know, writing and recording and releasing music, you just can't stop evolving or growing with it, you know. And you see, like, you know, people reacting to, you know, bands releasing new music and trying new things, and they're like, they freak out because, oh my God, this isn't what I heard before, like, what the fuck is going on, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But perfect example of that, Bring Me the Horizon, for crying out loud.
Literally just gonna say that. I had someone asking for it last night, but I had so much on, and I was like, right, fuck it, man, let's do it. I literally did that this morning, man. It was about 6:45 in the morning, because I was like, right, I need to figure out what time I'm speaking to these guys. I was like, right, I think I've got time, and I enjoyed it. I had to sort of. I saw all the negative comments that I was seeing for it, and I was like, I'm not even going to think about that, and I'm just going to go into it open-minded. But obviously, you're always going to have your preconceived ideas of what something's going to sound like, which I did. But it was better than I thought it was going to be. But I mean, it was like with That's the Spirit, man. I think it's one of those albums that you, or even just the one song in particular, you can't just have it as that instant one listen. I mean, I'm sure for you guys, if you, I mean, go back to, you know, whatever bands it was that started to get you into metal. If you imagine like the really brutal stuff that you listen to now, I'd imagine at your starting point, you'd have been like, oh no, that's just not for me. I think your taste evolves.
That was him. That was him. Yeah. Yeah. And look, like, I wouldn't necessarily call any of us in the band, like, you know, fans of Bring Me the Horizon, but you can't deny what they've done.
Oh yeah.
You know, and it's even the same as, like, you know, Parkway Drive. Like, in our heart of hearts, I'll always be, you know, those guys, you know, those pioneers, especially for Australian heavy music. You know, and I Killed the Prom Queen as well. You can't not respect what they've done.
Yeah.
So put shit on their music and all that sort of stuff, like, I just don't see any point to it. Like, if you don't like something, fine. If they've moved past where you stopped liking them, sort of thing, don't listen to them. There's no point. Like, and I guess, you know, being musicians ourselves, it's like, well, if you don't like us, like, don't fucking listen to us. Like, why are you wasting your time? If anything, you're doing us a favor by clicking on it. So
yeah.
you know, like,
thanks for hating us.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, and you're kind of doing our job for us too. Like, you know, like, hate it all you want, but you're still bringing our name up. You know.
That's cool, man. In terms of one thing I wanted to get you guys to put across, in terms of bands that you think like people should be checking out, bands that have suddenly sort of grabbed your attention. Is there anyone lately that you've come across and been like, wow, everyone needs to listen to this?
Well, you've already done Lycanthrope, so, you know. And there are boys too, like, you know, so big shout out to Scotty for hooking us up with you and all that sort of thing. But you know, what do you reckon?
We're talking about Australian bands?
It doesn't have to be, man. Anywhere, absolutely anywhere in the world.
I know you're gonna drop.
I'll give you a UK band. You probably know them. Have you heard of Conjurer?
I've heard of them, but I've not actually heard them.
Check them out. Check them out. I actually, I was in the UK not long ago, and I saw them in Brighton with Rollo Tomasi, and they are phenomenal.
They are.
So
yeah,
they're a new band, and they dropped an album earlier this year, first album.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I mean, the stuff that is coming out of the UK at the moment is just mind-bending, man. Like, I mean, you know, Dee's mentioned Rollo Tomasi. We're just obsessed with that record, and a Conjurer's record as well. You know, they're like, they're continually just pushing that envelope. You know, and it's amazing to see them sort of really hitting the international, the stage in a big way, you know. So we got mad respect for a lot of UK stuff that's coming out. I mean, While She Sleeps, like, absolutely amazing. Their last record was mind bending, you know. So, like, but as far as Australian stuff is concerned, like, you know, we got Drowning Atlantis, the boys in Drowning Atlantis. They just dropped a new EP, and that's like really aggressive and dope. Got boys in Decrier, which is more on the sort of you know, kind of blackened sort of sound.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've heard of Polaris.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I managed to catch. It was just I was really gutted actually. It was the tail end of their set because me and a friend of mine went to the Impericon Never Say Die tour. So you had like so Muir were headlining it. That was the main reason we booked it, man. So you had Polaris. I think it was literally like final two songs, but it was so sweet. We went in and I thought it's going to be absolutely packed. There was probably about 30 people watching them, and you were the good thing about the venue they were in, it was one of those stages where there's not. I don't think they even had there wasn't even security. Literally, like walk up and like stage is like here. I'm stood here. Band's there. It was awesome. The end of the set which I caught was really cool, and meeting Frankie. I ended up meeting Frankie and Josh, the guitarist, and I just absolutely creamed my pants, man.
Yeah. Oh, they're absolutely killing it, and they're such nice dudes too.
Yeah.
They're really really nice guys. But yeah, of course, like the Brave, they're gearing up to release something new pretty soon, which
Drown
is
This City as
amazing.
well.
Yeah, Drown This City. They're really gearing up for for an amazing 2019 actually.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of good shit going on down here at the moment. Yeah, and hopefully more and more, you know, like bands just end up leaving this country and making a mark for themselves, like internationally, because like we need those roads to be paved even more. But it's amazing just to watch our friends just, you know, do amazing things too. So
I guess we'll just have to wait until UNFD signs you guys, won't we? I think you totally fit with what they do, man. I mean, it goes to show you don't even have to, because I think I think they're primarily an Australian label, aren't they?
Yeah, they've got international sort of like, you know, merged with other labels.
But yeah, they're from Melbourne.
Yeah,
because
mainly.
Because I know it's like Hacktivist, who I love, they signed to them. Then you had Dream State, probably one of my most favourites. Certainly from the UK. I always feel weird saying they're from the UK because they're from Wales, where people are always like Wales isn't the UK, and I'm like, well, it kind of is.
well, I like Architects are they're distributed and signed to, they're all like signed or whatever to Australia, like to Unified for Australia.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, I mean, they made they've made a massive difference in the Australian scene. Unified have with a lot of stuff done. I mean, they've brought download down here. So
I didn't know they did that. Didn't know that.
Yeah. The first one kicked off this year, and they've got another one happening in 2019. So
that's excellent to see that they're doing that.
Yeah.
It's weird. I mean, I remember the labels and that I recall from like when I first started being in bands like years ago. There was only really one that everyone wanted to be on, Roadrunner. Everyone just wanted to be on Roadrunner, and now there's so many other labels, and it's like sort of like they've not been forgotten, but I think there's so many other labels doing so much more and putting all these bands on that maybe aren't not necessarily so groundbreaking, but they're signing these unknown artists, which everyone needs to be seeing. So I'm hoping it'll do the same for you guys at some point soon, man. You totally deserve it, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, guys, that's awesome.
Thanks, man.
Thank you very much for doing this short interview, man. I really appreciate you guys taking the time for that.
No, thank you, dude. Thank you. It means a lot.
No, you're welcome, man.